Welcome to the road to 1 million US dollars. Let's get right into the Bitcoin chart for today. First of all, taking a look at this 1 day time frame, taking a look at this descending channel then. Of course, since the beginning of this month, we have seen this big downtrend for Bitcoin. However, potentially Bitcoin is now ready to at least retrace some of that move because as you can see right here, Bitcoin has now reached into oversold territory. And typically what that means is that you either get some choppy sideways price action or potentially even a little bit of bullish momentum in order to reset that RSI back to around the 50 level. Now, of course, as I said in my video yesterday as well, it doesn't fully have to go all the way up to that 50 level because this is a strong downtrend. So for example, if you just imagine like a trend line or something like this, it can, for example, trade up to this trend line, which would be maybe somewhere here on the RSI, and then get another rejection down, in which case you would see the RSI potentially move into oversold territory once again before actually resetting all the way down to that 50 level. So that is something to pay attention to. Either way, since we are in this downtrend, and of course, you know, I flipped bearish right here at 70,000 US dollars and bought some Bitcoin right here at about 60.5K, as I said in yesterday's video. I still believe that we are going to break out of the top of this descending channel at some point because just zooming out here, we are clearly still in an uptrend for Bitcoin so long as we do not close any weekly candles below this descending channel. So therefore, I will continue to dollar cost average into the market, into Bitcoin, as well as potentially some altcoins, so long as we are trading inside this range, even if we go lower here. So as for the price levels to watch for this descending channel, right now the top side resistance is sitting at 69.3K and the support on the downside here is sitting at 56.5K. So yes, even if we go all the way down to about 56K here, I still think that everything is completely fine and that we can eventually break out of the top of this range. So as for the support and resistance levels on this 1 day time frame, right here you can see that Bitcoin held this big level of support sitting from 62.4K all the way down to 60,000 US dollars. Though in the case that you do see that move down, so trading below $60,000, then likely we are falling into this next level of support. Though if you start seeing, for example, some 4-hour candle closes below that 60K level, well, in that case, we are likely heading down lower to this level of support, sitting from 58K all the way down to 56,000 US dollars, with above that, this big level of resistance sitting from 65 all the way up to 66,000. Now, lastly, for some Fibonacci levels to pay attention to, right here, you can see these two levels right here, the 0.236 Fibonacci level sitting at 60.6K, and then the 0.382 Fibonacci level sitting at 63.1K, roughly speaking. So this is a big level to pay attention to that potentially Bitcoin can actually get rejected from. So that is why it is important to pay attention to these two levels right here. Now moving on to the Bitcoin liquidation heat map on this 3-day time frame. Right here, you can see that we have finally started sweeping some liquidity to the upside, although there is more liquidity to the upside left to be grabbed. So for example, right here on this 3-day time frame, we have this big level of liquidity sitting at 63.7K that potentially the price can get attracted to. However, there is also liquidity to the downside right here, sitting, for example, at 60.9K all the way down to 57.8K. So this is important to pay attention to on this 3-day time frame, especially if you see Bitcoin quickly sweeping this topside liquidity, only leaving this liquidity to the downside after that. Although zooming out to this 1 month time frame, it is pretty clear that there is basically no downside liquidity left here, at least on this chart. So we have some liquidity right here at about 65,000 US dollars, more liquidity at 67.6K, again at 70.2K, and lastly at 72.3K, with about $2.5 billion that gets liquidated if the Bitcoin price reaches this price level. So these are some big levels that the Bitcoin price might get attracted to, especially considering that we have swept all of this liquidity to the downside recently. So what I recommend looking for here is actually taking a look at that trend line and that downtrend I was looking at earlier and seeing if you can spot a break of that downtrend because in the case that you do see the break of the downtrend, likely the Bitcoin price is getting attracted to at least one of these levels right here that I was talking about earlier. Now, one thing that could work against that bullish move to the upside, at least in the short term, is this Bitcoin ETF flow table for today, because yesterday you saw another net outflow of $174 million flowing out of the Bitcoin ETFs. And it was not only the grayscale Bitcoin ETF selling, it was pretty much all of the Bitcoin ETF selling and no net buyers for yesterday. So if you continue to see these massive outflows from the Bitcoin ETFs, then this will of course put a lot of selling pressure on the Bitcoin price, potentially pushing it down lower. However, yesterday we of course saw that big push to the upside after getting that massive dump. So potentially tomorrow we will see a net inflow in these ETFs, because potentially the Bitcoin ETF investors are flipping more bullish again now that we have seen this massive push to the downside. Now, if you want to stay up to date with the crypto markets, I recommend you subscribe to my channel with notifications on so you get notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, let's move on with the Ethereum analysis here. So right now you can see that on the daily time frame, Ethereum has held this 0.618 Fibonacci level, sitting at 33.30, roughly speaking. So this is actually the key price level to pay attention to for ETH, because the next Fibonacci level to the upside is $4,000. So we are quite some ways away from that. But the 0.618 Fibonacci level is noteworthy and is important to pay attention to. And taking a look at these support and resistance levels here, right here you can see that Ethereum is running into this big level of resistance, sitting from 34.30 all the way up to 35.30. So potentially we can get a rejection from there. Now, if you do see that rejection, of course you need to pay attention to that Fibonacci level I was talking about earlier. So for example, if you see the price trading below, then getting a rejection from that Fibonacci level once again, well, in that case, we are likely heading to this next big level of support, sitting from 32.50 all the way down to 31.50, where likely Ethereum is going to find some kind of support, either with some choppy sideways price action or another bounce to the upside. So that is what I'm looking out for ETH. But of course, it is highly dependent on what Bitcoin is actually doing. And that's also why I have been covering Ethereum and Solana a little bit less recently, because there basically isn't too much to say about it when all it does is basically follow the Bitcoin price action and the Bitcoin technical analysis. So moving on to Solana here, right now Solana is running into this Fibonacci resistance, sitting at $138. So this is a big price level to pay attention to, because if you see that rejection, then likely Solana is due for another leg to the downside, especially with that bearish Solana news coming out recently, which I'm not even sure if it is completely real. So therefore, I don't want to say it in this video what it actually was, but there was a scare with a potential investigation into Solana. So that is something that could influence the price. But since I'm not 100% sure, I don't want to send you guys the news article or something like that. Although, of course, Bitcoin was pumping a little bit, so Solana did the same thing. And if Bitcoin continues to pump to the upside, likely Solana is going to do the same. Moving on to the support and resistance levels. Right now, Solana is running into this big level of resistance, sitting from $140 all the way up to $150. So again, potentially we can see a rejection from there. And in terms of the big support level to pay attention to, is actually this level right here from 133 all the way down to $124 for the price of Solana. So those are the key price levels that I'm looking out for in the market right now. This has been today's market update. Thank you for watching once again, and I will see you tomorrow in the next one.